We have a new main event this weekend for the Gastelum versus Imavov card. It is actually Gastelum that pulls out of the fight due to like a mouth injury. It looked like he had like ringworm or something too. It was very gross. But Strickland is stepping in on short notice. I believe he might be the first person to step in on or to do two back-to-back main events for UFC cards. So I think that's pretty cool. But Strickland stepping in, it will be at the 205 weight division, or it will be moved to that weight because Sean Strickland probably can't make 185, which is interesting because he only fought like a couple weeks ago. So my assumption is he's probably not in the best condition in general. Like he's not actively training. I think or he normally is actively training, but I like on his stories, I think he's been traveling a little bit for the holidays and all that. So he hasn't been training like Imavov, is basically what I'm saying. Imavov is prepared for a 5-round fight. Strickland is not really like he was prepared for a 5-round fight 3 weeks ago. So maybe some of that conditioning and some of that work will carry over. But we'll see how this fight goes. I think I'll go a little bit more in depth here. I set it up more like an early prediction video. So this is what we're starting with. So Sean Strickland 25-5, Gastelum 12-3. Strickland's 4 years older than did I say Gastelum? 4 years older than Imavov. Imavov is going to be a couple inches taller. It is going to be at the 205 weight division because that's where the weight was moved in. Because Sean Strickland, a short notice, can't make 185, like I said earlier. But Sean Strickland will surprisingly have a 1-inch reach advantage in this matchup, which should be really interesting. I think I have that correct. Yeah, I think it is a 1-inch reach advantage. We'll have a 1/2-inch leg reach disadvantage. But I was surprised that Sean Strickland has a reach advantage for this matchup. I thought, for some reason, I think that like Sean Strickland doesn't have decent reach, but he really does. He lost to Jared Cannonier and Alex Pereira in his last couple fights. I thought he beat Jared Cannonier. I thought he did a little bit more damaging shots, but it was a relatively close fight. I didn't understand 4-1 Cannonier though. I thought that was crazy. Jack Hermanson he beat Uriah Hall. For why do I keep saying Gastelum? Nasruddin Imavov. He beat Joaquin Buckley in his last fight, beat Edmund Shabazian, beat Ian Heinisch, lost to Phil Hawes. So basically this is probably going to be his first big fight at this point. I think Strickland maybe, if my guess, would probably be in like that 6 to 7 range. I don't know exactly what his rank is. I probably should have looked it up before this, but that's my assumption. So this is going to be a pretty big fight for Imavov. Pretty good way to get his rank up there, especially a guy like Strickland. For this one, and for Phil Hawes, for that Phil Hawes fight, Phil Hawes actually uses wrestling quite a bit here. But I think if Strickland was prepared for a 5-round fight here, I think he would do a lot better than I think he would do here. I'm probably going to go with Nasruddin Imavov. I'm going to assume that Nasruddin Imavov is just going to be faster and things like that, but it is at 205. So maybe the conditioning isn't going to be as bad there, that he doesn't have to cut all that weight. Because if he's able to make 205, like I kind of want to see what he's like on the scales. If he's able to make 205 from at this point, then he's probably cutting a lot of weight. So I do kind of want to see him in 5 rounds, but it is at 205, so I don't know if it'll necessarily matter. In accordance to like his cardio, but maybe his cardio will be a little bit better in a 205 setting where he doesn't have to cut all that weight. But I do think he's just going to be fast and powerful for too much for Strickland. I don't think Strickland's really prepared for this. But it'll be cool to see him at 205 too. Kind of see what Strickland's like. At 185, he does have some normally pretty good cardio and can hold a really good 5-round pace. And I think that's what I'm saying. If this was at 185, 5 rounds, and Strickland was prepared for this fight, I think I might edge it to him a little bit here because he does have a really good pace. I think he's probably gonna. Yeah, and I actually noticed in that Jared Cannonier fight, I think he was defensively a lot better. But I did notice that like after like the 3rd or 4th round, he did start to put his hands down a little bit, and he was starting to get hit a little bit more in the head. But he was blocking his shots a lot better. I noticed that. He was putting his hands a lot higher, and he was blocking a lot of those shots that Jared Cannonier was throwing. And that's why I thought he definitely beat Jared Cannonier in like those first few rounds. I thought I'm not going to necessarily go too much in Jared Cannonier's fight, but I thought you could say that Strickland won 5 rounds, 4 rounds, or even 3 rounds. And I guess you can say that Cannonier could have won 3-2, but I don't even know. Like, you can argue that Cannonier won 3-2, but not 4-1. That's my point. But it's because there was a lot of flip rounds in there. But yeah, I think if Strickland was more prepared for this and was able to fight at 185, I think this would probably be a little bit more competitive matchup. But I do think Imavov could possibly catch him here, because Strickland probably isn't in the best what do you call it, best conditioning for this fight. Isn't necessarily that 5-round pace might not be here, but if it goes past the 2nd or 3rd round, he starts pushing a pace and start mixing in his grappling, which we know he doesn't like to do, but he did a little bit against Jared Cannonier. I think he did shoot for a takedown, a couple of them. If he does mix in his takedowns and his striking, I think he can do really well here. He also has a really good takedown defense, so I don't think that's there for Nasruddin Imavov, especially in the second half of this fight, where his conditioning will go down and maybe the shooting for takedowns will tire him out a little bit. Like, I can definitely see Strickland winning this fight in those last few rounds. If anything, if Strickland does win this, I can see it being a split decision like his last couple fights. In all honesty, I think his fighting style isn't really good for the judges. I think, weirdly enough, for at least for the bad judges, because I don't think that they understand that the damage is how an opponent reacts, not necessarily how hard they throw. So for some reason, I think I'd heard Guru say this, but Strickland has some must have really big knuckles or something, because he doesn't throw that hard or anything like that, but he does hurt the guys that he fights. Like, he was hurting Cannonier. It is absolutely insane, because he's just not throwing super fast or super hard or anything like that, but he's still hurting the guys. So that's the reason why his fights look so close, in all honesty, especially to the judges. But I think you can see Strickland winning this fight, possibly, but I think it'll probably be a super close one, because I think Imavov's probably going to win the first couple rounds. But I don't know, this should be a really good one. I actually think this is a lot better than the previous fight that they're going to put in here, but I'm going to go with Imavov just because I think he's a little bit more prepared for 5 rounds here. Yeah, and I think the conditioning and his cardio won't be as bad at maybe 205, but who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong, though. I could be completely wrong. But we'll see how this goes. Strickland will have a 1-inch reach advantage in this, too, which should be interesting. But Imavov's really good at stepping in and out of range. So he dealt with the range like Pereira, but Pereira had a significant reach advantage, too. So if Strickland's able to be super defensive like he did against Cannonier, maybe he can get past those first couple rounds, tire out Imavov. If Imavov tries to shoot on him, he can defend those takedowns, because Strickland has really good takedown defense but doesn't like to use offensive grappling too much. If he's able to mix it in the later rounds, he could possibly win this fight 3-2 or a split decision. But I'm going to go with Imavov here because I just think he's a little bit more conditioned. But I can definitely see Strickland winning this fight. I'm not super confident on this pick, but I'm confident that Imavov might be able to get Strickland out of there just because he's a little bit more prepared. And, yeah, he's a little bit more conditioned for a 5-round fight. Like, I don't know how Strickland's conditioning is going to be at this point, especially if it's at 205, and he's probably not. He wasn't in camp for this fight, so he's probably not going to be. He's probably not going to have the best cardio and conditioning in this, but we'll see how this goes. It should be a fun one. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to join my Tapology group, it will be in the description below. I think if you guys already seen my videos, you know, description below. You can join the group, make your picks, tracks your picks. I'll put some community post stuff in there too. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this.